What is up, guys? This is DNJB here, and today I'm going to be talking about some of the negative effects of watching too much news on YouTube or any other platform. But before I get into the video, there are just some things I want to talk about before. So the first thing is, I do talk about this from mainly a Christian perspective. So even if you're not a Christian, you can probably still relate to some of the things I'm going to say and understand where I'm coming from, but it's still going to be from a more Christian biblical perspective. Also, there are two articles that I'm probably going to put in the description below that kind of support some of the talking points I bring up in this video. I just didn't get to add them in my initial recording, so just letting you guys know now. So, without any further ado, let's get right into the video. Over the past few years, I have been watching news commentators on YouTube. I would say I got into this genre in late 2019, but 2020 is when it became a bit more of a habit for me to watch these videos daily. Some of the personalities I would watch were the likes of Tim Pool, Steven Crowder, the Hodge Twins, and I would also watch The Hill on YouTube, just to name a few. Now, part of the reason I started watching these channels were due to the things going on at the time. We had a pandemic with tons of lockdowns and strict COVID policies. We had many protests, riots, and looting that happened soon after the pandemic started. We had the 2020 election with things heating up before and after. We had a crypto bull run and market crash. We had inflation, high gas prices, political tension in Eastern Europe, and we just finished the midterm elections, and that's just about where we're at now. So with everything that's been going on over the past few years, I felt it necessary to watch more news channels, and that's where my problem starts. Watching too much news commentary just gets depressing over time, and watching too much can even turn into anxiety, which I have experienced fairly recently. Just over a month ago, I had anxiety to a degree I had never had in my life before. There were many negative thoughts that were going through my head, and I just couldn't shake them. All I could think about was what was causing these thoughts and how could I get rid of them. So I prayed long and hard for God to show me the cause of the anxiety, and on my drive back from work, I realized that I was watching more political videos in my car. The funny thing is that earlier last year, I had decided to limit my consumption of political content to a few days a week because I noticed that watching too much would negatively affect my body. It was an addiction I kept falling back into. I felt like I could control it, but every time I would watch one video, YouTube's algorithm would recommend another and another until I was high on dopamine watching political videos, which just ruined my mental state. Now, throughout last year, I decided to take my Christian faith more seriously, and as I've grown closer to God, He has warned me of certain things in my life keeping me away from Him, and that includes politics. As believers, our purpose is to know God and make Him known, and while I do believe there is a right way to vote, we shouldn't put our political motives ahead of our spiritual ones. If we favor political motives over our spiritual ones, that can turn into radical extremism, and we don't need any more of that in our country. And that leads me to my last talking point, which is to simply trust in the Lord. The news gives us a more cryptic view of the world. When we watch the news, we are reminded that the world is imperfect, but God wants us to focus on the purpose He has for us, not the problems of the world. In fact, one moment in the Bible that comes to mind is when Jesus and His disciples were on the boat, and while Jesus fell asleep, a storm surrounded them. Long story short, the disciples were terrified of the storm. They woke Jesus, and He got the storm to stop. But He then turned to them and asked, "Have they no faith?" I think that's God's response when we panic over things we see on the news, whether it's inflation, high gas prices, political instability, or war. God reminds us that that's His responsibility, and we should simply put our faith in Him. Now, that doesn't mean not to pay attention to the news or to not know who you're voting for, but all I'm saying is that if you realize too much of your time is being spent on news or politics, and you feel like you're becoming a little more of a pessimist, it may be time to take a step back and take a break from the news. Now, one thing that I've done more recently is use my older YouTube account, probably the one you're watching this video on, and I've watched a little more interesting and entertaining videos because I've had this account before my other account, which I would watch more political videos, so the algorithm is kind of like working on my my other account, and with the account I'm currently using, I can just take a break, watch entertaining videos, and just not have to worry about any kind of political or divisive content on that. That's basically how I was able to turn it around, just avoiding all the political and divisive content that can include red pill and anything else that could get you into arguments. Personally, I just find it more calm and relaxing just to watch entertaining videos and just stay away from the divisive ones. Well, that's all I got for you guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to leave your opinions in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers, mates.